bring in Dan Senor. He's former foreign policy advisor to the Bush administration. He's the co-author of The Genius of Israel and host of the podcast Call Me Back. And before we get into any of the geopolitical questions, I just wanted to take stock of this moment, since you have been literally in Israel on the phone and talking and thinking about this from the moment it happened.
So I cannot believe we're a year later. If you think about where the world was, say, on December 7th, 1942, year after Pearl Harbor, or where the world was on September 11th, 2002, a year after 9/11. It's not the conversation that we are having here in the United States. In the United States today and in many parts of the world, as you talked about with Jonathan Greenblatt earlier today, Jews are scared. There's a sense of this sort of the end, what we've experienced over the last years, what I think is sort of the end of the American Jewish golden age, where it's not just that Israel was under a genocidal threat, the equivalent of 33 9/11s, the equivalent of proportionately 44,000 Americans slaughtered in one day, the worst day for Jews in a single day since the Holocaust. As though that were not as shattering as it was, the past year has just been an incredible wake-up call. I have a son who visited the Gaza envelope, the Jewish communities in southern Israel, with our family last April over Passover, and he compared it to visiting Auschwitz with my mother, who's a Holocaust survivor, 86 years old, the previous summer. And he said visiting those communities in southern Israel after October 7th was harder than visiting Auschwitz, as awful as Auschwitz and the Shoah and the Holocaust were. And he's not taking anything away, obviously, from the Holocaust, but what he was saying to us is that he just didn't expect in his lifetime. You study what happened in the Holocaust, that was like another era. He just somehow thought the world had been enlightened, modernized, more civilized, and then you watch the barbarism that happened in those communities, those attempts to just wipe out the Jewish people again. I just think it's a loss of innocence for a lot of Jews, especially young Jews. And so it's not just thinking about October 7th, although we are. It's also thinking about what we've learned about Jewish life outside of Israel since October 7th.
Well, that's a question. How do you think it has changed, and do you think it's changed irrevocably?
Well, look, on October 8th, 30 student groups at Harvard University issued a statement holding Israel entirely responsible. University after university after university, we start to see this kind of action. Protests in this country, not just calling for a ceasefire, but waving flags of Hamas, now expressing solidarity with Hezbollah. And I think that many Jews here feel, and I hear this all the time, and you see it in the survey data, they look around at their community organizations, they look around at the workplace, in corporate settings, in various professional settings, and they say, it's not just what happened on October 7th was horrendous, it's that there's a tremendous lack of empathy among people I work with, among people I've been involved with causes for the last number of years. I thought we were, shared the same values. And suddenly I'm starting to question whether they have my back. And I think that is not fixable quickly.
Let me ask you a question, though. There are going to be protests today, and there are going to be protests all week. And some of those protests are going to relate not to what happened on October 7th or October 8th, but what's happened in the time period since. And we talked about 50,000 other people dying in Gaza, and how that and people's views of Bibi Netanyahu and views of how Israel has tried to defend itself. And what that does to the psychological impact.
I just think it's, first of all, no country should escape fair criticism, including the Israeli government. I've been critical of things the Israeli government has done since October 7th and long before October 7th. But when you look at what Israel's going through, which is now facing a seven-front war by all these different entities and organizations, most of which have no territorial dispute with Israel. It's not like Hezbollah is saying, if we just cut a deal with Israel, we'll all be good. It's not like Iran is saying, we just need to reach a diplomatic accommodation with Israel and we can both exist in the Middle East. They're very clear that they're implementing an annihilation strategy, to borrow the Iranian regime's terms. And so it's a seven-front war. Israel's under siege from every direction. We've seen what happens if Israel doesn't have the defense capabilities in place. We saw what happened on October 7th. We now know Hezbollah want to do the same thing from the north. What Israel right now is doing is restoring its deterrence capability in the region and removing the capabilities of its enemies. no other country would be asked to do anything different. And Israel should not be held to a different standard. It doesn't mean that it doesn't make mistakes. It just means it's doing what any other country would do.
If the stated intention is to obliterate Israel with the nuclear weapon, and they're a week to 2 weeks away if they decide to go forward with it, how can Israel not do the nuclear sites now? And do you think that's what's going to happen?
I think Israel wants to deal with the nuclear threat.
Don't you have to eventually?
Yes, and I think the question is whether or not Israel has the capability to do it. I think Israel has the capability to do real damage to Iran's nuclear program, slow it down 1 to 2 weeks away. Maybe they can slow it down to 1 to 2 months or 1 to 2 years. I don't know if Israel has the capability to actually eliminate it. I do know one country that has the capability to eliminate it, working alongside Israel and Israel's Sunni Gulf allies, and that's the United States government. And I watched, for instance, Vice President Harris's interview on 60 Minutes, or clips of it, in which she's asked about Israel's behavior and whether or not the U.S. has lost its ability to influence Prime Minister Netanyahu, which I think is besides the point. I think the correct answer to any of those questions is, what's the U.S. interest in all this? The U.S. has an interest in preventing Iran from wreaking havoc in the Red Sea and sabotaging international shipping. The U.S. has an interest in preventing Iran from getting a nuclear bomb.
Dan, I mean, I hear everything you're saying. We had Admiral Stavridis on this morning, the former NATO allied supreme commander. He absolutely thinks we need to defend Israel at all costs, but I'm not sure he would advise that you go after the nuclear option. His point was Iran is 3 size the times of Texas. There are nuclear installations all over that territory, many of them buried 3 stories below the ground. And if you can't take it out, all you're doing is setting it up so that their 2,000 plus other anti-ballistic missiles are targeted immediately at Israel. And you're right that Israel has every right to defend itself. It's a different thing to ask the United States to come along every step of the way.
I think the question is, at this point, for Israelis and for the U.S., is what is the practical reality of Iran having a nuclear weapon? That is the question. Iran is becoming the hegemonic power in the region. We've started to see what that looks like when they can light up the Houthis to attack civilian vessels, civilian ships, disrupt international shipping, kill Americans. We've seen what happens when what they can do to Israel. And you see
your point is there is no going back. There is no going back.
So the question is, and the question is, at this point, look, at this point, Israel has made clear it is not going to sit there and be curled up in a ball on the floor waiting for Iran to continue to light up these proxies against Israel. So Israel is pushing back. If ever there was a time that Iran was going to race to a nuclear bomb, I think it would be now.
This would be it. But the question is, would Israel be prepared? I mean, the question is, if there's 2,000 missiles that rain down on Tel Aviv, whether Israel and with the U.S. can sustain that, right? Yeah. I mean, that's part of the calculus.
Obviously, and I don't speak for the Israeli government. I don't speak for the U.S. government. I can't tell you that these are risk management decisions they have to make. My sense in talking to Israeli officials, though, is they feel that they've crossed a threshold here where they cannot. The idea that they can learn to live with a nuclear Iran is absurd, and many officials in the U.S. government feel the same way. It's just unacceptable.
And they think they can take it out? They think they can't do it?
The U.S. can certainly take it out. The question is, will it work with Israel to do it?